Well, hi everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Thursday night, the 20th of December, 2018. Joe Rao is going to be joining me momentarily. He was gathering his dinner, and he should be in a minute or so. In the meantime, of course, we've had a pretty busy day weather-wise with everything that's going on with this storm that's impacting the eastern part of the United States. It's really impacting everybody east of the Mississippi for the most part. And it's odd, considering the time of year. You would think somebody would be getting some snow out of this, but it's entirely a rain affair up and down the eastern seaboard, and there's nothing that's really changed that. Now, there might be some snow on the backside along and west of the Appalachians on Friday night. The models are showing some areas maybe changing over to snow before this is all said and done. But since this system's kind of moving along, I'm thinking that the impacts from snow are not going to be all that high. And, I just heard the door. I think he may be coming in. So we'll talk about that part of the equation in just a little bit. Yes, he is. Joe Rao is joining us tonight.
Joe Rao is in the house.
And he is. This is so exciting. My audience demanded that you come on tonight. I mean, demanded.
I did not even realize that I did this or accepted the invitation before the food arrived.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
you could have brought it in with you. Scott Ort is new to my YouTube channel. Welcome aboard. Nice to have you here, Scott. And of course, we've got the regulars on here: Johnny Quest, Scott Briller. I don't know if Scott Briller ever misses a live stream. Izzy D is on tonight. My buddy Chris Alley is on. Robert Russo. I wonder how Robert Sabatino worked out for him. He's in South Florida, so he saw some of the thunderstorms they had today. Joe, I'm going to bring up the satellite loop. We'll get going on this because the satellite tonight is, it's pretty impressive when you, in fact, I got a better shot. I'm going to use the shot that I got on my window here. So hang on one second.
Open your window.
We'll open the window.
There you go.
And here we go. And this is this storm has got big circulation here and impacting everybody east of the Mississippi.
And I think the worst of it I shouldn't really say this because we have such a tremendously widespread audience.
Yes.
All over. But I mean, in our area, the tri-state area
of New York, because there are a bunch of other tri-state areas.
Tri-state areas.
So yeah, we're talking New Jersey, New York City, Lower Hudson Valley. And Long Island, Southern Connecticut. That's kind of where Joe and I focus on. But as he said, we talk about everybody here up and down the East Coast.
And
Go ahead.
2 to 3 inches of rain. But I think the most of that, I'd say about 75% of that 2 to 3 inches, is going to fall during the 12-hour time frame from 1 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning, to 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. And that means that for a lot of our viewers in the New York metropolitan area, the morning commute tomorrow is just going to be a tremendous headache, very problematic, and especially so in my sector, the Lower Hudson Valley, where we have a number of parkways attached to bodies of water. Hudson River Parkway, Bronx River Parkway.
Those parkways become bodies of water.
Exactly. So this is going to be a rough morning tomorrow. I know for a lot of our folks who are in our neck of the woods. And then after that, actually, it looks like things are going to become more tranquil here, just in time for the final weekend before Christmas and on into the early part of next week.
Right. Now, earlier today, if you look, folks, where Florida should be, I wish that we were able. They wish they could have the geography kind of come through, the state borders come through. But I think everybody on here knows where Florida is. They had a squall line of thunderstorms roll through. That has pretty much worked its way through Florida, and some of those storms are now flaring up over the Keys and into the extreme southeastern part of the state, and they're moving out offshore. But if you look up to the north and west, you can see that swirl of clouds that's coming off of Louisiana and Mississippi. That's the actual bottom of this very, very deep phased trough that's in the eastern part of the United States, driving all of this. And of course, as a result, if you go just west of there, it's bone dry from Texas all the way up into the northern plains. And we've got more energy coming in with another storm headed up in the northwest. But I'm going to jump to the radar and give everybody the view of what's happening here. And we'll go down into you could actually still see the line of storms. Some of these were severe earlier, but they've actually kind of weakened a bit from what they were earlier on the radar, Joe. But when you see lines of storms in March, April, May, June, and so on, you're supposed to see them in that time of year. You don't see them at this time of year too often, even down into the southeastern part of the United States.
And a good hunk of Florida earlier today was under a tornado watch, mainly because of that skinny, snaky narrow line that indeed moved through very quickly and is now getting ready to move through the Keys and offshore from Fort Lauderdale.
Looks like there's another line approaching now across the Panhandle down into the eastern Gulf, offshore, but of Tampa, St. Pete, but getting closer and closer. So there might be another wave of downpours and thunderstorms, as you got that upper air trough has to kind of play itself through. So still pretty busy there.
But probably not with the ferocity, let's say, of the storms that came on by earlier today, and especially now that we moved under the cover of darkness. It's a little cooler, and so the atmosphere a little less unstable, but still unstable enough so that there may, as you just mentioned, could be some thundery weather left for Panhandle area and also for northern Florida.
Here's the main rain area that's moving northward. It goes all the way back into Indiana, western Kentucky, and Tennessee. Looks like there's some heavy rains and some thunderstorms starting to develop just offshore North Carolina, and this is another area where the Storm Prediction Center had a risk of severe, and where did I do with that? There we go, Storm Prediction Center. But this probably needs to be updated. This is the forecast that they issued earlier today, this morning. So they haven't really changed the map very much. I just pulled up the latest one they had, and it turns out this is from earlier. But we've got this slight risk of severe for the coastal Carolina counties, both North and South Carolina, with a marginal risk into Southern Virginia. So there's probably still some more work to do. I just want to see, sometimes they update it on this map.
At one point earlier today, that zone down in Florida was actually slight and upgraded, not upgraded, but slight to enhanced. The enhanced is now no longer there, but
they actually still have the slight there, and there is what's left of a severe thunderstorm watch. I'm going to try to widen this out so people can see this a bit better. Let's see if I can make it bigger. There we go. I don't want to do it. Yeah, so you can. There's still marginal to slight risk here in southeastern Florida, and you've got that slight risk up through the Carolinas. So they've pretty much got everything unchanged, and of course all of this kind of moving its way up the East Coast. I'm going to go back to the radar, the main radar, just to show everybody the perspective further north. One of the odd things, Joe, with this storm, considering the date, no one is getting snow out of this. Not even Maine when it gets there. This is going to be rain all the way up, which is really unusual, and it shows you what happens when the Pacific, what we usually call the fire hose jet that runs across the Pacific, and just basically floods the U.S. with Pacific air, and even floods in this instance flooded southern Canada with Pacific air. So there's just no cold air at all for any of this to work on.
Pretty interesting, because this morning, stepping outside my house, it was about as frosty and cold as you might see during the month of December. There was frost. Temperatures were well down in the 20s, and you would have suspected that, okay, if the rain were to come in fast enough, maybe it might actually start off as a little sleet or ice or wet snow, but it never did. It just started off as plain rain, and as you just pointed out, even up in the northern tier of the northeastern United States, Maine and northern Vermont, New Hampshire.
Not even going to start as snow. Maybe a little bit of sleet or freezing rain in some of the coldest spots briefly, but that's it. This is rain all the way up. And I know this is this weekend, because of the way where Christmas and Christmas falls on a Tuesday, so a lot of people are off Monday and Tuesday. So you've got a weekend. A lot of folks like to go skiing on ski weekends, both this weekend and the weekend going into New Year's. The ski resorts are going to get all rain out of this, so we'll probably have to look toward next weekend and beyond to do a little replenishing. But there's been enough snow through November and December that a lot of these ski areas are actually in pretty good shape with deep bases, and they'll be able to make snow behind this anyway.
Yeah, they took full advantage of the cold weather we had earlier in the week to make a lot of snow. And yeah, some of that's going to melt, but then once we get into the weekend, it'll start cooling down again, and the process of creating more new snow will proceed once again.
The low analyzed at 4 o'clock this afternoon, right on the western portion of the Florida Panhandle. It's a 996-ish low, and then you've got this warm front and all these dew points here across Georgia into North Carolina into the 60s, and you've got low 70s dew points just offshore here.
That's crazy.
I mean, that's very warm tropical air, and that warm front, by the way, is analyzed almost actually inland in southernmost New Jersey. North of there, it's all in the 40s. I wonder, I can't check without losing the map, but I'm trying to give a check a little later. Remind me just to see what Atlantic City's temperatures are, Atlantic City, and down through southern Maryland, to see if any of these places have already jumped up into the 60s. I know Toms River in central New Jersey was 50 at 7 o'clock, and in northwest New Jersey, up in Sussex, it was 38. But you still have very chilly air here, but it's, again, it's all above freezing, so nothing of consequence is going to be happening.
Right. And sometimes we talk about, well, will the warm front get through? Will it pass on by? Will it stay to our south? But it doesn't look like that's going to happen this go-around, because there really isn't any cold air damming to preclude that warm air from marching northward and up and over into our area here in the New York metropolitan area. So I say with a very high level of confidence that when people open the door tomorrow and head on out to work or school, temperatures are going to be at least in the low 50s, especially if you're down by the shore areas, and maybe even inland, mid to upper 50s, which is incredibly mild for a morning in late or mid to late December.
This low on the GFS, and I'm going to make sure you guys can see it on the surface. You look at the isobars. I mean, this thing just the circulation going back into the plains on one side, and then out off into the Atlantic on the other. The gradient is going to tighten, so the winds are going to get strong and gusty during the early morning hours from coastal Maryland, Delaware, on up to New Jersey, Long Island, southern New England, and we probably could see gusts over 50 miles an hour right along the immediate coast as that gradient just tightens up, and then we've got this heavy rain to deal with. As you said earlier, looks like a large area is going to wind up with about 2 to 3 inches worth, and we're just going to have to wait. The whole bottom of that trough has to swing up and around.
That Prague right there. This is the GFS for.
This is at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
So what that is indicating is the amount of rain that has fallen during the previous 6 hours, and that's damn impressive. I mean, that's a long.
Well, you know what? Let's go tight here. That is. I got to see how I can drive through that. Oh boy.
I think we should stay up here tonight, Jim.
Well, I didn't bring any clothes with me. There's the stripe of how the GFS sees the world, with a stripe of 2 to 4 inch plus rainfalls. They are running from coastal North Carolina, coastal Delmarva Peninsula, right up east of the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey to about New York City. The GFS at least wants to see the heart of this rainfall cutting right over Long Island into Connecticut, and even nosing up into southern New Hampshire. Still, for laughs, we'll bring up the NAM. The NAM actually has the same idea, just has it further west. It wants to have the heavy rain just inland of the coast,
right.
And it floods out the state of New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, up your way, and down to about New York City, maybe a little bit less for me. So I guess it's depending on how these models look at things, they probably have the same. They have the same print with regards to where the heaviest rain's here. Now the NAM shows you what it thinks the radar is going to look like, and it has it lined up a little bit further to the west. Bottom line is, it looks like a 2 to 3 inch rainfall for just about everybody. And there's your changeover to snow, by the way, for tomorrow night in Ohio, western Pennsylvania through West Virginia. NAM's pretty aggressive on doing that. I haven't even looked at what kind of snow it gives. I'm using the positive snow growth maps to take into account the lack of cold air and some melting, but I would think that it's showing those elevated areas maybe getting about 3, 4, 5 inches, but everybody else, it's just basically a coating to an inch or so.
And for viewers in the tri-state area, the snow lovers are saying, well, why can't we get some of that? It can't really happen because once the winds turn around into a northwesterly direction, and as the movement of that snow approaches our area from the west, it encounters the Appalachian Mountains, and as the flow goes downslope of those mountains, that pretty much warms, compresses, dries out the atmosphere, and that puts us kind of in a rain, or in this case, a snow shadow. And so there's really not much hope that we're going to see much of that 3 or 4 inch snow amount get to our area over the upcoming Saturday, Sunday period.
I jumped over to the upper air. This is pretty impressive upper air here. Big ridge off the East Coast. Big ridge on the other side of this trough. I didn't go wide enough. Maybe I'll take the U.S. view so everybody you can see the big ridge, the big mountains on both sides here. That's if you have a deep trough, you have to compensate that by having strong ridges on either side, and
right.
This is what you have here, and it's phased. If we run back before all of this happened, just to review on how the atmosphere worked this time around with the gears, the whole gear concept and how the gears change. But there's your southern stream shortwave, and then if you look off the Pacific Northwest, you see that energy coming down in that northern part. It phases in, and there you have it. And this is just going to means mammoth warming on one side and cold air coming down on the other, relative cold air.
The northern stream, as it just seems to drop or plop
yes.
into that southern side. It's almost like the southern stream getting hit, digesting a steroid, so to speak.
Yes,
atmospheric steroid.
Pretty much.
And boom! There you go.
The strongest part of this trough is the bottom.
Right.
And that crosses over Florida, and it goes what we always talk about, the tilt of the trough.
Right.
It goes negative, so all that energy comes on northward. Oh, well, look who's joining us now.
Greetings, gentlemen.
Hi, Addison.
Hello,
Mr.
hello.
Green.
Just saying goodbye and
Oh.
seeing the show live and in person.
You want to hang for a minute?
Sure, I'll hang for a minute.
Dude, you want to take my seat for the moment?
Okay.
Take my seat.
Hang on, we're doing a seat change. We've got 3 Mets in the room. This could be dangerous, folks.
Too many cooks spoil the broth.
Well, I say you can line all the meteorologists in the world side by side, and they still won't form a conclusion.
There you go.
All right, so we were just talking about. Are you chewing gum?
I was. I just put it out.
What flavor?
Spearmint.
Okay, I thought so.
All right. I'm glad I wasn't chewing onions. What is that smell?
Addison is, Addison's used to me because I tend to, how shall we say, break them every once in a while. Mm-hmm. Correct. No, we were just looking at the this is pretty impressive trough, and it lifts out the what follows, guys, in my never be humble opinion, mm-hmm. is not really all that much. I mean, you look at the upper air. There's energy around, but it's not. Nothing is really jumping at me to say that any of this stuff that follows is going to do anything.
This is the kind of setup where I think everybody can be happy. The people who don't particularly like snow, the people who don't want to have snow, let's say Christmas Eve or Christmas Day because it might foul up their travel plans or whatever. And for those who do want that kind of situation or want to see some sort of snow, we may end up getting some scattered snow showers and flurries to help, make it festive. Perhaps Sunday night, and again perhaps on Tuesday night, and again not anything that we would see paralyze travel or roadways, and maybe not even
Yeah,
enough to,
like cheap thrill stuff.
Basically.
That's all we need.
And I think that you probably everybody will like that from that standpoint. It's not going to be totally off the page for snow, but again, maybe just enough Sunday night and Tuesday night to make everybody.
But
happy.
the upper air is just very messy looking here at this point. You just got too much energy running around, and unlike what you saw for tonight and Friday, where you have this one very deep trough, now you've got you've got energy in the east, you've got some energy back in the Rockies, you've got some energy coming into the Northwest. There's even some more in Canada coming down near Lake Winnipeg. There's just nothing here that would create any kind of organized system.
It's a mishmash.
Correct.
Sure.
So here's the NAMS. By the way, lake effect land might do okay here come Sunday into Monday.
Oh yeah, that's just what they live for. That nice wind coming off the lakes. I mean, most of the lakes, I would say, at this point, relatively ice-free. Maybe exception being like Lake Erie, the usual suspect. That's very shallow. But that should definitely help to contribute some lake effect snow and towards Ohio, western New York, western PA, west of the Appalachian Mountains. But yeah, definitely, like you said, Mr. Rao, that we're not dealing with a big system here that's going to dampen anybody's plans. This one that's coming through right now, it's kind of on a good thing that we're getting out of the way now.
Yeah.
Boy, I just discovered here, I made a switch. I'm just noticing that the parallel GFS actually has what it thinks the radar is going to look like. And for Christmas Day, there's a little bit of precip there, Joe, on Monday night evening. Mm-hmm. So there's your cheap thrill for Christmas Eve. Okay. Then it looks like some areas out in the Rockies and in the West wind up with some snow up through the southern Rockies. We have a low there, and of course we've got high pressure just kind of envelope. And by the way, was the European not crazy the last few days with trying to show all this snow that it was? It winds up being being a big nothing.
Mm-hmm. No, the Euro was doesn't always hit a home run, but this one kind of whiffed a little bit.
Well, yeah, and I'm trying to understand why it did it, because no other model really showed anything remotely close. But for some reason, the operational European just kind of latched on to the possibility that something was going to happen, and it winds up being nothing.
Well, tonight on our Facebook show, we'll be 24 hours closer than last night to or into the upcoming weekend. So we'll see what the NGM,
the NAM. Yeah, now you're going
what
back.
Am I saying? The NGM.
Now you're
Where
going
did I
way
get
back.
that? The NAM will do with this impending system for the weekend.
Now, later next week, the next low comes out, and in spite of the fact that we have actually a very, very strongly negative NAO, North Atlantic Oscillation, the NAO can be calculated, it covers a large geography, but we don't have the blockiest atmosphere, but there's enough there. But yet this next low is going to go by to the north. So this looks like it'll bring snows late this week up into the plains, up through the upper parts of the Midwest. This will be another rain affair here, although you could kind of make the argument, and this is something we'll have to wait till later on through the weekend and into next week. If that NAO stays strongly negative for a longer period of time, you could conceivably have that high that's south of James Bay wedge in a little bit of cold air. I think that's what the parallel here is doing for the end of next week, whereas this would be something where it actually starts as snow in areas of the Northeast, unlike this one.
That reminds me of the storm we had before Thanksgiving, the same similar situation where we had that high pressure to the north that was supposed to back away, start off as snow, then a winter mixed rain, never changed over, and the high just kept pumping that cold air down while the precip was coming on up. So hopefully this high pressure leaves town rather easily, unlike the last time.
Well, it'll be easier to dislodge or to get rid of that high in the current situation, as opposed to, let's say, if we had an exceptionally cold December and there was a lot of snow cover over New England, then we'd have the cold air damming. Then it'd be a little bit more problematic. Not to say that it's not going to end up being problematic. It could if things pan out just right. But right now, I would say, I would think that if we do get any frozen out of that system, later next week, it would be in terms of an initial shot changing over.
I want to touch on the events up in the stratosphere.
Oh, here we go with the stratospheric warming, folks.
Well, for those who follow Judah Cohen. Just want to see. I'm going to go back a run. Every run is going to be a little bit different, so it's hard to tell, which run's got the... I'm going to show everybody the one that's more exciting. How's that? I'll be honest about it. But no doubt that we're having this major stratospheric warming event. And Judah Cohen tweeted that per NASA, this could be could be a record stratospheric warming event since NASA's been observing this sort of stuff, and they go back to about 1979.
Right.
The temperature change in the stratosphere is almost 140 degrees.
Wow.
I mean, that's insane.
Yeah,
that's just
wow.
insane. And if you watch what happens to the polar vortex as it gets attacked by this...
Look at Siberia, man.
Yeah. Now, we're looking way up in the atmosphere here, but the GFS from earlier, and it's been doing this back and forth, splits that vortex in two when we get into the new year. And what happens in the stratosphere takes there's a lag time of about 10 days to 2 weeks to kind of translate its way down to the bottom.
Right.
But this is a very cold and wintry look in the stratosphere, and we'll have to see if it gets to this point.
What valid date is that for?
This is for January 5th.
Oh, yeah,
January
we were
5th.
talking about that. Yeah, I mean, if that
So
holds through, all the cold air over like Siberia and the Arctic just comes surging down.
Well, one of the things you got to remember too is that the models, when you have something like this, which is so extreme, models are going to have a terrible time showing it, and you're probably not going to see it show up well in the long range until you get, until it gets closer and closer into the shorter range, and the models are going to kind of evolve. Just like what happened last February, Joe, when we had the one in the middle of the month, and there weren't any really clues in the longer range until we got toward that last week of February that the models began to catch on that this is this big event in the atmosphere winds up playing out the way it did in the month of
And
March.
what have I been saying about the next potential big snowfall, January 6, 7?
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
All right.
So that's...
We'll hold you to it.
If that happens, wow,
That will be
time.
an epiphany.
Yes.
6th is on a Sunday. All right, so we got everybody on the chat board here, so let's run through that. Nice crowd tonight. What happens in the stratosphere can happen in the atmosphere. Yes, like the play on the
I hope so.
on Vegas. Reaver 501, are you on board for the idea of a brutally cold January? He asks.
Well, it might actually... First of all, it hasn't been exactly a cold December after a very cold November. Things kind of moderated. So now we've become acclimated to chilly temperatures, not very cold. So if we do get that polar vortex, migrating, let's say, into eastern North America at the start of January, and get that flow coming down from the polar regions, I would say the first half of January could be rather cold indeed. Whether or not we can hold on to that for the entire month, that's something else. But if you remember last year, Joe, it was the last few days of December and the first part of January that were bitterly cold, and then things really started warming up later in January. Maybe we'll see something like that next month. We'll see.
Here's one for you.
Me?
Yes, this is definitely for you because you got that whole December 3-inch theory. Okay.
Right.
So Scott Briller says that since 1869 in Central Park, in New York City, there have been 19 Decembers with no measurable snow. 17 of those winters wound up being below average.
Yeah, but we've already had a trace, so that doesn't... When you look in the books, I'm sure when he says no snow, I'm sure he's saying December, 0.
Zero.
This
You mean 0.01 or higher?
Well, 0.1 or higher. But
I mean,
his trace... that's the question. Did he include trace? And I'm thinking you probably didn't. I think you went for 0.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so if you went for 0, you've got 17 out of 19. Now, I think Central Park actually has trace for the month.
Right. We had
Okay.
a trace a few days ago. And the thing is that out of the last 6 winters, 3 of the 6 have been with less than 3 inches in December. One of those 3, we had just a trace of snow, and yet we still managed to end up above normal in terms of snowfall.
Which one was that? Do you remember?
I don't remember off the
Was
top
it
of my
for
head. I'll look
December?
at I'll look it up and
I'm going to want to say December. I know it. Believe it or not, I remember we had accumulating snow in the El Nino year in December. It actually, we had measurable snow. It was like for one weekend it got cold, and then it was 70 on either side.
Oh, and
so I'm going to say either 14. It's not 13. I think it's going to be 14.
Okay.
That's my guess.
And I just remembered something, an interesting little tidbit I saw in today's New York Post. They were having the predictions of some psychic. They all start making their predictions for the beginning of the new year. But this one psychic, and I don't remember her name, and I don't care to remember her name.
Miss Cleo?
But one of her predictions was that we were going to have a white Easter. Good luck. I think Easter, this upcoming year, Easter comes like on the 22nd or 23rd of April. One of
almost
the
latest you can get.
So if we have snow that late in the season on Easter Sunday, that will be interesting to see.
Ben McGinnis wants me to show him. Ben's in Nova Scotia, and he wants me to show the wind maps. So why don't we do that?
With that note, I must depart, gentlemen.
Thank you, Addison Green. Always welcome, sir.
Yes,
we'll see you tomorrow.
Bright and early.
All right, just for you, Ben, I'm going to put up. We'll get the wind maps up for southeastern Canada, and here we go. Hang on, buddy.
Addison made this seat nice and warm. Oh,
warmer than your dinner that waits for you. I'm sorry, I had to say that.
I'll just go in the break room and put it in the microwave, and that should take care of that.
All right, so here's your wind at the moment, which is next to nothing. Let me just make sure you can see it on. Okay, good. So you can see it. This is off the GFS, by the way, and it looks like you start to get into some wind. I guess Friday night into Saturday. I've seen far worse for your area, by the way.
My goodness, we had a windstorm for them a couple of weeks ago that makes this look like the Boston Tea Party coming up.
I have to look closely at what the whole overall geography is of this area in the waters here.
Right.
The Gulf of St. Lawrence.
No, I don't think it's the Gulf of St. Lawrence. It's something, but it's not.
But I guess probably having to do with the terrain in New Brunswick and the terrain in Newfoundland and the terrain in southern Labrador.
Yeah.
It's like this trap where it's like a wind tunnel in there. There's always gales blowing in that body of water. But it doesn't. I mean, you get into some gales; they don't look especially crazy. And even for you, by the way, this is rain. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah.
How far west everything is. Look at the precip as it comes into Maine. Two little patches of whatever that is, sleet or freezing rain, that probably lasts for all of 5 minutes.
Right.
And then up it goes.
One patch up in the Gaspé Peninsula of Quebec, and then that's it.
And that's it. And then done.
Yeah.
And then it's dry as we go through next week, right through Christmas. All of next week, I guess. You have to wait till Friday before you start to get into any snow up in your way, Ben. Again, it goes back to that whole idea of the Pacific just kind of flooding the atmosphere across the U.S. and southern Canada with very warm air. Oh, and Augustine Albert to remind us that tomorrow is the first day of winter.
5:23 p.m. And then we follow that up the very next day with a full moon. There's some who get all excited about. In fact, I got somebody who wrote to me and said, "When was the last time we had a full moon and the winter solstice coincide?" I think it was 1999, and wanted to know when it was going to happen again. But there's no major, thing. I mean, just an interesting confluence of two different events on the same date. But 5:23 p.m. That's when we arrive at the winter solstice tomorrow. And just think, at 5:24, the days begin to get longer.
Yes, but they don't really have any impact until we get... The
No.
temperatures don't bottom until the first week of February on the averages. James Hines points out, is that Les Sweet? Is that how you say that?
Yes, Les Sweets winds
Les Plumes
of the Cape Breton Highlands. Okay, that's what it is. It's not St. Lawrence It's that.
Rainbow Citizen, welcome aboard. I know you're new, and great to see you here. Raining cats and dogs in Virginia Beach, and you got more rain to go, and probably some thunderstorms to get involved. Hey, Robert Sabatino, if you're still on, I'm just kind of curious how strong the thunderstorms were when they moved through your area in Miami, and of course you're on your way up to North Carolina to go skiing for the weekend.
I assume it's the western part of North Carolina.
Well, he's going up to Boone.
Oh.
All the way up. So he's going to have some stuff on the ground.
He's not going to Hatteras or Duck Island for skiing.
Let's see. Rick 8013, 2 LSRs of tropical storm wind damage in Wilmington, Wilmington, North Carolina, and 1 tornado warning issued by MHX North Carolina in the past 2 hours. And he's near Wilmington. He's had over 2 inches so far. You're in that other. He's in that other risk area, folks.
Yeah.
That extends up into
Just goes to
into
show
the Carolinas.
What juicy 70-degree plus dew point air will do.
Here's Alfred Phillips, who is from what I think he said Wainwright, Alaska. When he popped up, I think my memory is
I think it's Wainwright.
Wainwright. Okay,
Wainwright,
so
which is a very famous name in a very beloved movie. If you remember, It's a Wonderful Life. One of Harry Bailey's friends was the exceedingly rich and well-to-do Sam Wainwright.
Hee-haw.
Yeah, exactly.
He just put an ob here, and I was scrolling so quickly now I lost it, but I got to find it because it'll make all the snow lovers cringe. All right, where did it go?
Who did you say the other day that you said that in the New York metropolitan area, the last 8 times the precipitation has gone over 60 inches, it's been below normal in terms of snowfall for a winter?
Yes, it was. Okay, so in every, in was it 8 or 9? He posted it. It was 8. John Smith had commented on one of my videos from last week that there have been 8 instances in Central Park where the rainfall for the year went up over 60 inches, and in each of those years, the snowfall for the winter that came out of that was below average.
Right.
And the thing I brought up was the fact that the vast majority of those winters were between 1970 and 2000, which was where 25 out of the 30 winters were below average anyway.
Right.
So you have to ask the question whether it was a cyclical, were we in some kind of cyclical downturn for snowfall at the time? Was it the pattern that drove those very wet years also made them very warm? Right. I think you could certainly make an argument that was definitely the case.
Well, that's just such a small sampling, though. Try looking back, let's say pre-1970, and see how it works. We have records at Central Park or at New York City going back to 1869. So it'd be interesting to look further back.
Yeah, it's a lot of numbers to chew through, and you could probably find, whenever you're looking at weather statistics, of course it's always good to have more data, but you can also find a way to make correlations, whether they're actually there or not. And you have to sort of think them through, because we could have a situation like I just explained with the fact that they were below average, but they also came during a period where every year was below average. Right. Clarion Christine, welcome aboard. She's in Florida, so she found the channel tonight. Nice to see you here. I'm still trying to find out. I think it was Alfred. Where is it? Because he had an observation.
Izzy D, by the way, says that from where he's in Alabama, the local TV weatherman or meteorologist there said there have been a few small tornadoes confirmed in parts of Florida. So
yes, and now we have Rick over in eastern North Carolina also reported. I saw another post that he had with regards to wind damage. I hate when I do this. I find
you find
it's on the chat, and then I hit the wheel on the mouse. Mike Akulian. New to the board, welcome. Really windy and the atmosphere is pretty wild right now. A lot of lightning. And Key Largo, no rain yet. Oh, so he's on the Keys, right. And yet there's a front moving through. Thanks for letting us know. Key West Marathon, Key Largo, Florida Key. Lots of lightning, wind and wind. Atmosphere is going crazy. might get a tornado in Florida somewhere. The storm
At
prediction.
least a water spout.
Yes, Storm Prediction Center did mention in their last discussion that they were sort of cutting back on the idea of they thought that the squall line was actually weaker than what was forecast. Now, of course, we're into the evening hours, and as you said, Joe, the nighttime, slightly less instability and some cooling, and you take the strength of those storms down a bit. I'm just trying to find it. I apologize, Alfred, if you're still on. I know you're on. Your comment is in here somewhere. And by the way, I am really thrilled. They got all these people that are running comments tonight. Thank you so much. I really enjoy the fact that a lot of folks are jumping on and getting involved in the conversation. Somebody brought up the LFM, by the way. Here he is. Stan says the LFM, another classic. I'll say.
Right. And the LFM, there were actually two LFMs. There was the original LFM, which only went out as far as 36 hours, and then they came out with the new and improved 2-dot LFM, which not only included everything through 48 hours, but an initial panel as well.
It was very good at forecasting 2 dots.
Yeah. Well, it did very well in the 78 storm.
I found Alfred. Okay, I found his good evening. Now I got to find his ob. There he is. I finally found it. Okay, so where he is in Wainwright, Alaska, 2 below zero, wind chill 22 below, 78% humidity, a north wind at 15. Wainwright, Alaska, Arctic coast region, hardly any snow, just cold weather. Boy, you're way up then. Is he way up?
Yeah,
I gotta Google map this. Show you where Wainwright, Alaska.
Furthest north I've ever been is Anchorage.
Oh my, Joe, look where he is.
Where is that?
He's all the way up. This is like the best.
Is this
oh
like
my
the-
God, this is so. I think this is so exciting.
Where's Barrow up there?
Barrow is Port Lay, Wainwright, Prudhoe Bay. He's right on the coast.
Wow.
I have to tell you, I am so thrilled that you are on here. This is probably the northernmost person that I could ever have outside of somebody possibly being on a sled
Now, he's so
on his
far-
way to the North Pole.
He's so far north. He's probably now in perpetual darkness. I don't think. I don't think he's going to see the sunrise again until sometime in January or early February.
Alfred Phillips, I hope you come on again. I am so.
You live up there. This is probably the highlight of his whole day, watching us.
Now be nice. It's got to, you got to have a. I wonder what the mindset is in terms of trying to get used to the fact that you are, like you said, in perpetual darkness from what is it, mid-November to the end of January.
Yeah, something like that.
That's got to be. I know that when you go in Alaska, that there's like all these tanning beds that people use just to get some kind of light.
Right.
Oh boy, that is
And the people,
that's astounding to me.
And like, for example, if you live, let's say, in Anchorage, a lot of the young people during spring break, they fly straight to Hawaii, which is kind of like the equivalent of people up in the New York area flying down to the Bahamas or to Florida or the Caribbean. They just go straight south, go to Honolulu for, it's a 5 or 6 hour trip, but it takes them out of that gloom and darkness for a while.
Bobby Woodruff wants to know, and when is Brattleboro, Vermont getting snow? Not from this storm. You might get a little bit from whatever's going on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday with any kind of stray lake effect that you get a little upper air disturbance to carry it along. But maybe later next week when that next weather system comes out, if we get a little bit more blocking, it'll probably hold on to some cold air for you. You might be in a good spot. And Ben McGinnis says one place that I'd love to go to is Alert Nunavut.
Oh yeah. I know what he's talking about. In Ungava, up. I know exactly what you're talking about. Alert is one of the farthest north, most populated area. Not most populated, but populated area.
Where there's an actual person.
Yes,
or persons.
There are about a few dozen who live up in Alert, and that's not too far away from Resolute Bay. I mean, we're talking way, way up in Canada, Joe. We're talking about like 75 or 80 degrees north latitude. And,
Unreal.
yeah, it's crazy, you know. In fact, one of those towns, maybe he knows, is it one of those towns has a sign that says, "This is not the end of the world, but you're pretty close
to it." Ryan Hastava, they're coming back locally with the potential for coastal flooding for the South Shore of Long Island. I have to tell you, and I agree with you with your point, and that is, he says that North Weather Service predicts tide gauges to be approaching major in southern Long Island with this southeast wind, and then going south-southeast. That's coming in perpendicular to the South Shore. There has to be, at the very least, moderate coastal flooding, and we are going into a full moon here. So I would think that you certainly could have widespread moderate coastal flooding, possibly taking it up to the next level. I wouldn't doubt it at all.
If you are one of those who is living in a home on stilts along the South Shore of Long Island, these next couple of days will be white knuckle weather for you, especially with those gusty southerly winds coming straight in at you.
Bobby Woodruff wants to know, well, I'm assuming, Bobby, you're talking to both of us. Yeah, we're both we both actually grew up very close to each other, although we didn't meet until we were in
the late 70s.
Right, when Joe was in just because Joe's a year or a little slightly older than me, but basically we were both around 20-ish.
Right.
I'll compromise.
Right.
All right.
Right.
But we actually were we were living blocks apart as children and as teens. And then our paths finally crossed when we were about 20. We went to
the same Catholic elementary school.
Yes, we did.
Holy
Rosary. But I never had Mrs. Quinn.
Oh, please. Please. I'm very sad to say, though, that Holy Rosary Church shut down.
Yes, that was a beautiful church. I was baptized in that church.
Yeah.
Were you baptized in Holy Rosary
no,
or in the other one?
No, I was baptized in the hospital, actually.
Oh, okay.
So it's... don't get into that.
We won't get into that.
But Holy Rosary, a beautiful, I guess, Gothic church on East 119th Street between Pleasant and First Avenue. The building is still there, but
yes,
the church
is, and apparently there's also parts of the church have deteriorated to the point where they can't really let you in there anyway, which is sad.
My grandmother lived just down the street. I lived on 426 East 119th Street. She lived at 450, and the church told her that they had to move. That my grandparents had to move out. They were knocking that apartment building down to build the rectory for the church staff, the nuns, and so they had to leave. And the rectory, I wonder if the rectory is still there.
I don't know.
I wonder if the school is still there.
You know what? I don't know. Yeah. I think the school's closed.
Yeah.
David Schwartz, we're talking to Reaver 501 about the East Pacific Oscillation looking to be positive after the new year. I would just be very careful with looking at these teleconnections right now. They're almost, if this big stratospheric warming event takes place, and depending on how it evolves, it might render the teleconnections a bit useless, especially if we look at them from day to day, if only because of the fact that they are pointing to the idea that you're going to have the atmosphere perhaps stretched to an extreme. If that's the case, you're probably going to see these things, a lot of this stuff change over the coming days. So don't put too much stock in the shorter range part of it is fine. But after you go past the 6th or 7th day, I would be really cautious, because I bet you every day from now right through next week, you're going to come in and those teleconnection models, when they're done once a day, are going to be changing in the longer term.
William Huber, he says it's minus 20 light snow right now in alert. Is that minus 20 Fahrenheit or minus 20 Celsius? It'd be a heck of a lot more impressive if it was minus 20 Fahrenheit. Because minus 20 Celsius is what? That's just a couple of degrees below 0 Fahrenheit.
Oh, Digger310 says, I ran into a mutual friend who is Jim Witt, and we talked about the long range and... Oh, my weather app. Oh, nice. Thank you. I hope that means that he downloaded it and I hope that means that you downloaded it. It's free. I appreciate that, Joe. You know Jim.
Yeah, I just got an email from him a few days ago, and he is still doing, after almost 50 years, he still does long-range forecasts, and he puts out a calendar every year about this time and sells it, but every single cent that goes for the sale of that calendar goes to a foundation for children, and I really am an admirer of Jim for doing that. But he's also, it's interesting in these calendars that he puts out, Joe, he's got a list of dates going all the way into the 2020s, dates that you should be aware of or we should watch. I don't know when his next day that we should watch is, but it's interesting.
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit, minus 20 Fahrenheit and alert. Wow.
Well, let's. I want to just say hi to Jakey Snakey. We welcome to the channel. I think this is your first time on, but if not, then a big hello. Super Syed, I haven't seen you in a while. But you bring up a point, Super Syed. Is hope to see snow for the Mid-Atlantic come in January in 2019. Well, unless you were north of, say, Charlottesville, draw a line east-west through Charlottesville. So if you missed out on the Mid-Atlantic storm from a couple of weeks ago, be patient. It will happen. I will leave you with this, because, you got to go eat your dinner. And
I'm having
you
fun.
all right? Okay, but I will leave you with this. I did happen to look at the European monthlies, okay?
Right.
And they are very bullish for snow for much of the East Coast. The monthly, let's put it this way: the southern edge of the 30-inch line is somewhere down just north of Richmond.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
So the European and the European has been doing this for those that follow this sort of stuff with these long-range maps. Now, I would just tell you that even though you have to, of course, view those with a lot of skepticism, I will just say that going back to last year, the European back last February kept insisting that the 45-day period from February 15th to March 1st, to April 1st, was going to produce big snows in the east, and it wound up being very much correct.
Right.
In lieu of what wound up happening during the month of March. So just a little food for thought there. I guess the better takeaway was to say that whatever the European model is looking at, it's decidedly saying that it expects that the long-range pattern is going to get very wintry during the month of January. So just look, we're not even to Christmas yet. Everybody be patient. We haven't even gone into what I always used to call the lockup period, which was the last week of December, first week of January. That's the time where oftentimes in normal winters, where you wind up locking into a winter pattern that carries you through much of January and February. So we're not even there yet.
Well, we're only 20 days into meteorological winter. Astronomical winter begins tomorrow. So for people who already say, throw in the towel or say that it doesn't look good, I mean, come on,
you have to stop.
Got started.
Yeah, stop it.
Yeah.
December's not. You've had big storms in December, but it's not really considered a winter month from the standpoint when you compare it to January and February.
It's like what Neil Frank used to say about when you talk about hurricanes. He always used to say July is a slack month. We don't get into it until August. So think of December as a slack month. And we'll start getting into the thick of things January and especially February. And in fact, I often have what I call the snow window, Joe, February 5th to February 19th, the 2-week period where, at least at Central Park, some of the greatest snowstorms in New York City history have all occurred in that 2-week interval. So I always used to, when I used to do the weather for the sanitation department, I used to allude to that as we got close to or into that 2-week time frame that, here we are. If we don't get the big snows now, we may not get it at all this winter season, but this is the time frame to watch. And we're weeks and weeks and weeks from that window anyway.
And Zim is on. I think because she told me how to pronounce it. It's Lacey Beloyi, but because I couldn't remember, and she told me I can just call her nickname is Zim. So Zim is on. Slight drizzle in D.C. Getting ready to get into that big rain. We have Chad Tracy 67. Welcome aboard. A lot of new people on tonight. Kathy Taylor. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Of course, Joe is very, as always, you're always welcome here, obviously. We have a lot of fun when you come on.
Where's Brittany? Well, Brittany was out yesterday and today.
But I think she's going to be
I'm not
back
sure
tomorrow.
Come in tomorrow. I'm not sure. It's her little boy was got sick yesterday and apparently still sick today. So
a lot of stuff going around.
Yeah.
Typical of this time of year. So anyhow, I guess we'll put an end to it here tonight. It's been a good show. We went 55 minutes and 24 seconds.
Yeah, not bad. And we'll be back on Facebook in about an hour and 15.
Yeah, so we'll be on Facebook tonight at the usual time, 9:20, 9:25. So if you go to my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Cioffi, and you can tune in. If you're not on Facebook, I usually wind up uploading the show and putting it on YouTube tomorrow morning. So you'll have to wait. It'll be a little dated, but there will be some. We'll try to get some new stuff on there with regards to. Usually we have most of the new NAM out, so we'll be able to analyze that and anything else that we come up with between now and then. And all right, so that's it. All right, so let me just tell you. I saw you said, Digger, you had my app. Thank you very much. And for those of you who have an Android device, download my app, which is going to get an update soon. By the way, I've been spending the last 2 weeks
badgering Apple,
and badgering my wonderful tech guy Anthony Lucidi, who's been just amazing with the patience that man has, and he's put together a really, really beautiful app with some new additions. So assuming now Google says okay and doesn't give us another hard time, there'll be an update coming out on the Google app for Android. So here's the link for those of you. This will work really well if you are in our area: New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, Hudson Valley, coastal Connecticut. Did I leave anybody out? No. Northern New Jersey, specifically. But I've changed a few things around so that if you want your own local weather, no matter where it is, you'll be able to access that, basically zip code weather. And also, while I do write, obviously, about the local weather, I do also write a lot about the long range and the overall long range pattern in a more generic way. So it might apply certainly to other areas nearby, reasonably nearby, or perhaps even not so reasonably nearby in the East Coast. So anyway, it's a free app. You can go ahead and download it and enjoy. And as I said, there should be an update coming out soon. And for those of you who are really into weather and just can't get enough of it, you would love to be on my Patreon platform, and I'll put the link up for that. This is a subscription platform. It's just $2 a month. We do a lot of stuff on there, including live streams just for Patreon members, although I haven't been able to do them this week, being at Christmas week, and you get busy. But I'm definitely going to do one tomorrow morning. And there was also posts on Patreon just for Patreon members that don't show up anywhere else. And you can message me anytime for a timely response. So give it a look. It's just $2 a month. And it's just the price of a cup of coffee. And you get more weather than you know what to do with. And one other thing, for those of you who shop on Amazon, this is a really easy way to support my channel. We're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for this channel to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and its affiliated site. So if you shop on Amazon, I'll put up a link here for you, and you get your stuff, and Amazon, out of their own pocket, puts a couple of cigars into my Christmas stocking. So, and then we're all happy. So there's the link for that. Thank you very much for being here tonight. If you were new to the channel, again, welcome. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is absolutely free. It's this way you get notified when we do live streams, which is usually once a day. And sometimes during big storms, we get brave and we do it twice a day. So thanks again for being here tonight, folks. Joe, thanks for being on tonight. Go have your dinner, and we'll see you guys later on Facebook.
Keep it 3 more seconds here. 2.
One hour.
1 hour.
Do you ever think that we'd be able to, when we started out?
No.
Where weather people in the New York market there were nights I could remember where the weather person would get 20 seconds. You'd prepare this whole show. I can remember years ago when I worked at WCBS TV when I was working with Alan Casper, and in those days, it really took a long time to prepare a show because you had just magnetic maps and all this other stuff.
And Alan was the only one who did isobars.
Right. So you got all this weather together. You put the whole thing up. You do it, and I can remember one night he literally had 20 seconds for weather. 20 seconds. And there wasn't anything especially breaking news-wise. In those days, they actually did, real news as opposed to some of the stuff they do now. But the bottom line is that literally a 20-second weathercast. And here we are in a day and age where, we're now 1 hour and 1 minute in, and we still have a lot of people that haven't faded away yet.
Right.
Amazing.
Talk to our heart's content.
I know. We were both born about 20 years too late.
Yeah.
At least I know I was, because I'm loving this stuff.
Well, at least we had a chance to experience what was the golden age, so to speak, of weather. The Tex Antoines, the Alan Caspers, the Gordon Barnes. Now I'm going over names that some people say, hey, I remember him, going way back,
Yep.
And we dealt with all of them.
And the youngins that are coming up now will say the same thing about all the people that they saw.
I think they'll say that about us in 40 years. Remember those 2 guys?
They're saying it about us now, Joe, as it has been 40 years. Have a great evening, everybody. Stay safe. Travel safely. Big travel night tonight, of course. Weather-related travel delays all over the place tomorrow, up and down the East Coast. Even in places where the weather has ended from the standpoint of rain, there probably will be wind issues with this, strong storm that's running its way up the Appalachian Mountains. So just be careful, and we will see you tomorrow.